hesitate to call it a great topic. I mean, it's a great book that's out, and an interesting topic about I don't know, how do you bring this about? It's satanic crimes. But it's something that we haven't really covered before on the show, and I wanted to delve a little bit more into. The name of the book is called Satanic Crime, A Threat in the New Millennium, and from the information that was sent to me prior, it was certainly interesting. There's a lot to look into with this. Our guest is William H. Kennedy. He's the author of this book. And let's just, again, this is one of those, how do you skate on this nicely, Tim? This isn't a friendly topic or hey, we're going to talk about satanic crime right after this. It's not one of those kind of deals. This is one that you take a little bit more seriously, but it's certainly a reality of the world. And I think in the place that we're at right now with the paranormal at such an all-time high and exploration of things outside of the normal, it seems to me, and maybe Mr. Kennedy can shed more light on this for us. Bill, do you think that satanic crimes and the look to the dark side is getting bigger at this point in history than it has in the past?
Oh, sure it does. I just want to say thank you for having me on, Dave and Tim. I really like Darkness Radio a lot.
Oh, thank you.
And
well, it's
for
our
a
pleasure.
topic like this, the name of your show is just like perfect.
Exactly.
This isn't the Barney Hour or something like that.
It isn't?
So, no, you get into some hard topics here. But, right, my book is called Satanic Crime, A Threat in the New Millennium. And what the book basically does is the first chapter is called A Brief History of Modern Satanism. And that covers the Satanist movement from 1875 up till, 2006. And 1875 was the birth of Aleister Crowley, who's really kind of the grandfather of modern Satanism. And I cover all the major Satanists in the first chapter, like Anton LaVey, Kenneth Anger, all of them right down the line, Shane Bugbee, Boyd Rice. I get into all the contemporary Satanists and what they're doing, and the remainder of the book are cases of serial killers who are also Satanists, and the final chapter of the book is about satanic organizations amongst elite, like the Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove, and Bilderberg Group. So my book, Satanic Crime, is the most comprehensive book on Satanism on the market, and Brad Steiger wrote the back cover blurb for my book, and he was very kind in that he asked me to write the back cover blurb for the reissue of his book, Atlantis Rising, as a result of this. So my book's won a lot of critical acclaim and respect for me, which I'm very, very serendipitous about. I'm very happy about that, although my subject matter, as you mentioned earlier, isn't all that cheery. But that's basically it. It looks at serial killers who are also Satanists.
Well, why don't you, can you start at the beginning? Give us some background on the Satanist movement. You said that it kind of follows it from the 1800s.
Right. Well, contemporary Satanism can be traced to one man, Aleister Crowley, who lived from 1875 until 1947. And what Crowley basically did is, when you look at all these contemporary groups, many of them link back to Crowley. So I'll just quickly give a run of his life. He was born, as I said, in England in 1875, and his father was a rich brewer. He went to Cambridge University and studied literature, but he dropped out so he could spend all of his time studying ritual magic. He became a 33rd degree Freemason. He joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and he also joined a third group called the Ordo Templi Orientis, which was founded by a guy named Theodore Royce in Germany. So Crowley joined all these fringe masonry and occult groups around 1900, and then he asserted himself as a Satanist. He began calling himself the Great Beast 666. He had his followers worship him as both Jesus and as Satan in very bizarre rituals. He went to Sicily, and Mussolini threw him out of Sicily in the 20s because he was having ritual orgies that included bestiality, and he let young children, like 3, 4, 5 years old, actually watch sex between humans and animals. Pretty horrible thing. Now, Crowley, after that, the rest of his life he wrote and lived very modestly, and he died a penniless heroin addict in 1947. But his influence is immense in that when you consider that the Wicca movement was really a spin-off of Crowley, in that Gerald Gardner, who coined the phrase Wicca, a neo-religion concerning witchcraft, he got most of his rituals from Crowley's Gnostic Mass. So the whole Wicca movement, you see right down the line, Sybil Leek and Alex Sanders and Janet Farrar, all these contemporary Wiccans, they may not even realize it or like to admit it, but they're Crowleyites as much as they are, earth worshippers. And there's even a lot of hexing and curses within the Wicca movement you don't hear a lot about. But Crowley was influential there. Now, Crowley was also the Rosicrucian group out in San Jose, California. A MORC was actually founded off an OTO charter, and Aleister Crowley tried to once take over that organization. He was going to sue H. Spencer Lewis because a lot of their rituals were rituals that he inspired. And, right down the line, all these different weird cults. Scientology has a direct link to Aleister Crowley, in that L. Ron Hubbard studied with Jack Parsons, who was Crowley's #1 U.S. Representative. So when you look at how incredibly, influential Aleister Crowley is, most people haven't heard his name. He's impacted pop culture. He's on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. But where Crowley gets kind of sinister is that he, one of his spin-off groups after he died in 47, there was a branch of the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis, out in Berkeley, California, and who joined that group, or was affiliated with them anyway, was a young Anton LaVey and a young Kenneth Anger. They were originally Crowleyites, and they went on to found the Church of Satan in 1966, and Anton LaVey wrote the Satanic Bible in 1969. He eventually died in 1997, but he's probably the most influential and well-known Satanist I write about in the book, and even he was tied in with a lot of very shady characters, like Bobby Beausoleil and Susan Atkins, who were two of Manson's followers who were sent to prison for murder, were Church of Satan members before they hooked up with Manson. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, who was the serial killer in the mid-'80s, before he went on his killing spree, he spent a week in San Francisco with Anton LaVey and performed all these rituals. Then he left and he went on this murderous spree. Now, when he was being tried for murder and, the rape of old people and children, Zena LaVey, Anton LaVey's daughter, actually showed up at his trial. She was sitting there in the audience. I've had that confirmed by several people. So when you look at the Church of Satan, which pretty much claims to be a harmless group, when you look at some of the people connected with them, they're pretty horrible.
Yeah, I would say. Now, but with Anton LaVey, and actually, isn't Anton LaVey considered kind of the founder of the Church of Satan at this point?
Oh, yeah, he founded it. Excuse me. As I said, in 1966, he founded the Church of Satan in San Francisco. And he started to have followers come to his house. And some of these followers turned out to be serial killers, tragically enough.
Now, what exactly is Satanism, though? I mean, are they leaning on Satan like Christians do on Jesus Christ and God? Is Satan, we actually had correspondence a while back from somebody from the Church of Satan, and they were claiming that, they get a bum rap because of the word Satan in their business, and that they're not all about evil and out, wanting people to die and do this. They said they're a pretty passive group. They have their own belief systems. They're no worse than any other religion, and so on and so forth. What do you know to be true of Satanism?
Okay, well, I'm not saying every Satanist is a serial killer.
Right.
Or a potential serial killer. I never said that. What I will say is one thing about these Church of Satan people, they never give you a lot of hard facts about their organization. For example, in 1995, there was a fellow named Joe Fiorella who out in Northern California, he was a card-carrying Church of Satan member, and so was his best friend, And what these two card-carrying members of the Church of Satan did is they ordered a ritual knife off of Maledicta, which was one of the early Satanism web pages back in 1995. And they got a ritual knife and they murdered a 15-year-old girl named Elise Poller and had sex with her, dead body. It was necrophilia. Now, when Joe Fiorella and his buddy were arrested, they had Church of Satan cards right on them. So the Church of Satan, as I say, the vast majority of the membership and people who claim to be Satanists, if they don't perform any crimes or do anything wrong, I really don't care who or what they worship.
Right.
But when I see some of these spin-off things like Joe Fiorella, and then they won't take responsibility for, promoting some very, very harsh ideas about selfishness. And on that Maledicta website I mentioned earlier that Joe Fiorella went on, there was more or less a quote from Anton LaVey, who was alive at the time, telling people to go out and kill other people. So when you're putting out messages like this, and then when the press comes to you, you don't acknowledge any of these, most heinous things that are part of your religion. And I do this myself. I'm a Catholic. The name of my other book is called Lucifer's Lord, Satanic Ritual Abuse in the Catholic Church. So I'm highly critical of my own church, and I think people, in a sense, should put the worst foot forward. Now, the thing about Satanism, you have to remember, David, Tim, is there's three kinds of Satanists. There are theistic Satanists who worship the devil as a real metaphysical being. There are atheistic Satanists who worship the devil as a metaphor for rebellion. And there are autotheistic Satanists, Satanists who use Lucifer as a metaphor to worship themselves individually. They try and turn themselves into a god. And the Church of Satan is primarily an atheistic form of Satanism. But there's two things about it. There's a contempt for Christianity, number one, and there is a definite underlying malfeasance towards other human beings. It's a very survival of the fittest mentality, and the weak should suffer. They deserve to suffer. It's part of the national order. Anton LaVey incorporated a lot of Nazi rituals he got right from the SS into the Church of Satan. That's not a very nice thing either. And like I say, it's not an organization I particularly like. But, if a person wants to dress in black and wear pentagrams and worship Satan and they don't bother anyone, all power to them. This is a free country. That's really not what I'm looking at in my book. And the ironic thing is, Dave and Tim, is that Satanists actually love my webpage and love my book. I don't get any hostility from the Satanist community, which really surprises me. I get emails of support almost every day for the different things I'm doing in Satanism. So ironically enough, a huge part of my readership are Satanists, are Wiccans, are occultists themselves.
Now, you've mentioned Wicca a couple times. I thought Wicca is a pretty passive deal. It's all about Earth Goddess and healing and health, and you've made a mention a few times that there's a darker side to it. Well, I mean, there's a darker side of every religion. I understand that, even Catholicism and Christianity.
Sure. There's a downside to everything, and I think it's imperative, even with my own religion, to look at the worst, put the worst foot forward, let people know what they're getting into. If someone wants to convert to Roman Catholicism, give them a lot of information about the priest-pedophile crisis. That's the first thing you should do. Okay, here's the worst of what we have to offer. We're not hiding anything.
Right.
So if you get involved with us, you can expect such and such. This has happened to other, children have been raped by priests. That's how you go about it. And I think Satanists should be more like that. We have this philosophy, but Richard Ramirez took it the wrong way. We have this way of life, but, Susan Atkins took it the wrong way. So I think that's very, very important. I do it with my own religion, and I think it's important to do that. Now, with Wicca, to get back with what you're asking, number one, Wicca was formulated by a guy named Gerald Gardner round about the mid-1930s 30s. He really gave shape to the various neo-pagan groups that were around before then. Now, what he did is he started to formulate various Wicca covens, and as I said earlier, he went to Aleister Crowley and borrowed a lot of Crowley's rituals from the Gnostic Mass, which is this kind of pagan occult mass that Crowley had developed many years before. The first three initiations, the words are virtually simultaneous between God